Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us and welcome. We're so grateful today to be joined by our senior U.S. Senator, John Cornyn. He has served Texas as a judge, as Attorney General, and now as our U.S. Senator, and he has earned a reputation as an articulate and powerful voice for us Texans in Washington. He's known for reaching across the aisle to get things done, as he has recently done and passed our coronavirus relief legislation. So please help me welcome our very own Senator. Welcome, Senator, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Pastor Loya, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you. You and I were able to visit in person last August, but I have to tell you, it feels like a lifetime since then. Our country has gone through so much and continues to go through a lot, particularly I know down in the Valley. We're experiencing a pandemic, economic slowdown, and a difficult but necessary discussion about racial inequalities that have existed throughout our nation's history. So it's been a challenging time, and I think many of us have leaned on our faith as a steadying force amid so much uncertainty. I was telling a group of pastors the other day, I said, I think God's trying to teach us a lesson here. And that lesson is we can't depend on ourselves. We need to depend on Him. And so this has been a challenging time for our country. And I think many of us have been grateful for our faith as a steadying force amidst so much uncertainty. Pastor, I want to thank you, Rosemary, and everyone across church for the countless ways you've supported your members in the greater RGV community during these difficult times. We have, as you said, passed a number of bills to try to provide some relief, both to individuals who, through no fault of their own, did not have any income, greater unemployment insurance benefits in addition, and then also some help to small businesses through the Paycheck Protection Program. On the social justice side, we've been working to enact common sense police reforms, which would do things like end chokeholds, provide better training for our law enforcement officers, and help build a more diverse police force. As you know, the Supreme Court has recently struck down efforts to end the DACA program, but this is obviously not a permanent solution. I've talked to the president personally and the vice president about this, and I believe we still need to act to put these young men and women on a firm, lawful footing. A congressionally approved program, not just an executive action, one that allows them to stay in the only home that they've ever known. So I'll be back in Washington on Monday, where we'll keep working on all of these issues and more. And I'm happy to talk about what we've done and what I hope we can accomplish in the coming weeks. And of course, be happy to answer any questions you or others might have. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Senator, again for joining us. And we do have questions along those lines. And I want to just personally thank you on behalf of all of us here at Cross Church and the RGV for your leadership and your example of faith. And obviously, we're so glad to hear that your faith in God is strong and firm. Obviously, none of us have ever had to lead through a pandemic before. And so COVID is on everyone's mind, and I know that there has been some legislation that has passed, and I'm sure there's conversations that are taking place all the time. And I know that the safety and the health of Texans is your absolute top priority. And you've been working to ensure state and local officials from Texas cities affected by COVID-19 have a seat at the table as we work together across the board to keep Texans safe. So my question to you is this: what are some specific steps that you have taken to make sure that Texans stay healthy and are prepared for the days to come?
Well, Pastor Loya, the great thing is we each can make a difference ourselves in how we conduct our own lives. We can wash our hands, socially distance, mask when you can't, and stay home when you're sick. That's something every single one of us can do. But in the meantime, we've been talking to people like Judge Cortez in Hidalgo County about the spike in cases. And I know many of the hospital workers on the front lines have been exhausted. They haven't had a break. And so working with the governor and the federal authorities, I know there's literally thousands of additional support workers coming to the Valley and around the state to give those frontline workers a needed rest and relief. But we want to make sure every person who contracts the virus gets the appropriate medical care. The challenging thing is that you can even have the virus and not know it. And so that's the importance of people getting tested for the virus. So if you have it, even if you feel okay yourself, you don't spread it to people who are vulnerable, particularly the elderly or people with underlying health disorders. So again, there's something that each of us can do individually, and then what we have been trying to do to support the local hospitals and public health workers there on the front lines, while we continue a race really to come up with a better treatment to save lives, and then ultimately a vaccine, which hopefully will prevent this virus from causing this sort of havoc and chaos that it currently has inflicted.
Well, thank you again for doing your best to keep us safe. We know that Texas in some ways has been considered a hot spot, and obviously we have a pretty dense population in different cities, and I know you and your office and our state and local officials are doing their very best to contain the virus and stop the spread, and obviously you have our prayers and our support. And I also want to say for the record that we are extremely grateful that at least in Texas, churches have been deemed essential. And you know as well as I do how essential our faith is and our prayers to God. And so thank you so much for standing behind and supporting the church. Now, you are no stranger to the RGV, to the Rio Grande Valley. You visited us often. We met in person not too long ago. And thank you so much for taking the time and taking us into consideration. Can you tell me, Senator, why the Rio Grande Valley is such a priority for you personally, and how can we continue to be a resource to you in Washington?
Well, I love the Rio Grande Valley. The people are so warm and friendly, and I have the great honor of representing all 29 million Texans. I take that responsibility very seriously. And of course, the only way to know what people need is to talk to them and to listen. I've learned that a lot of folks in politics are pretty good at talking. Not so many many of them are good at listening. And I always find, my dad used to say when he was still alive, he said, when you're talking, you're not learning anything. And so I've tried to take that to heart. And I always look forward to coming to the Valley. I look forward to coming in person again soon as conditions permit. In the meantime, we'll keep all of you in our prayers as well.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm a witness. You know, our last meeting together was pre-COVID. And, you know, you did us the favor of coming down and visiting the area and gathering a group of pastors. And I can attest that in that meeting, you did listen, and your heart was to hear us as we represent our congregations. And so that meant a lot to me personally, to know that we have a senator that cares about our opinion as a community of faith and what we might be going through. And now obviously with everything that's going on with COVID and here in the RGV and beyond, our prayers are with you and Washington as well. I do have a question on police reform. I read an op-ed that you wrote about how we can police our communities better. And as you well know, that's a buzzword right now. That's a hot button. And you said, whether in Congress, workplaces, or homes, these discussions are not easy. And for too long, the topic has been avoided altogether, but progress can only happen if we're having these important conversations and following it up with action. So my question, Senator, is what is being done at the state level and maybe even at the national level to address these issues and to restore trust with our local law enforcement and possibly pass statewide police reform?
Well, Pastor, as you point out, these are conversations we need to have in our homes and at our kitchen tables, but also in our communities at the state level and at the federal level. But most police related decisions are made at the local level, because those are the cities are the ones that hire the police force. The county has the sheriff's department. And but one thing we can do is provide some essential training and guidance. One of the things that I am supporting is a commission that would study our criminal justice system as a whole, including this, and make recommendations to Congress on what specific things that we can do. But in the end, I think what happens, what has happened, is that there is a bridge or a gap in the trust that some communities have and don't have. For example, I had one faith leader in Houston tell me, he said, "I love the police, I honor the police, I support the police." He said, "But my son is afraid of the police." My own colleague, Tim Scott from South Carolina, who's an African American, said in the last couple of decades, he's been stopped 18 times for what he says he calls driving while black. Now, somebody that looks like me has not had that experience. And we know our Hispanic community, many people have had negative experiences with the police, but the police are there to protect us. And we need to make sure we support them. But when they are bad actors, that they are held accountable and they're removed from the police force. And those are decisions that need to be made primarily at the local level, but we certainly can provide some training, some expertise, and some money to help improve the quality of policing and relationships with the community.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that your attitude is nobody is above the law, and we agree 100%. We need to do everything within our power to support and pray for our local law enforcement, and at the same time hold people accountable at every level, whether it's in the police department or in the church or in the school district or even in politics, for what they say and do. As you very well know, we had 2 fallen officers in the city of McAllen who were fatally shot on Saturday, and they responded to a domestic call, and the 2 officers are identified as Police Chavez and Police Garza. And so we know that you're aware, and you've expressed, as many others have, their heartfelt condolences and prayers. And so we see that there is a need, and there is, like you said, a distrust between some residents and law enforcement. And we're so grateful to hear that you're doing your best to make sure that we get the necessary reform and legislation passed to help bridge that gap that is clearly seen. I do want to ask you a quick question on immigration. And I think especially us here at the border, being of Hispanic origin and Mexican descent, this is something that affects all of us. Now, you are a senior member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which handles immigration and border security issues. So what is being done on immigration reform and on border security at this time?
Well, Pastor, I must say we've been so consumed with the response to COVID-19 and these other related issues that there hasn't been a lot done in that area. Obviously, border security is something that border residents understand. They understand the vulnerability to people, particularly who have no respect for our communities on the U.S. side and who want to exploit those communities by committing crimes, assaults, robberies, and the like. So trying to maintain that border security is important, but at the same time, it's more than just about physical barriers. As you know, it's technology. It's supporting our brave men and women in the Border Patrol. They have some of the hardest jobs in America because they're just very difficult jobs under very difficult circumstances. But my hope is that once this virus is contained, that we can turn again to look at our immigration system as a whole. We've tried that many times since I've been in the Senate, and it always ends up breaking your heart because we've never been totally successful. But that doesn't mean we need to quit trying. And I'm in constant communication with the White House and with other colleagues in the Congress to try to come up with a way to make, if we can't do everything at once, can we do incremental reform? But we are a nation of immigrants, and we're better for it. But we understand the difference between supporting legal immigration, which I enthusiastically support, and immigration which is not done through proper channels, which I think we appropriately discourage and deter. But I think if we have a chance after this virus is contained, that would be worth our best efforts. It's been a frustrating and maddening topic because so far we have not been successful.
Well, I mean, I would agree that we have been long overdue for some type of comprehensive immigration reform for a long time. This is not a problem, if you will, or issue or challenge that started yesterday. And it's probably not going to be resolved overnight. But I also know that you have a huge heart for the Hispanic community and for the Hispanic Texans, or as we like to call them, Tejanos. And we thank you because you do represent us, and we feel that we are well represented through you and through your office. You mentioned a moment ago about the U.S. Supreme Court's decision on DACA. And Dave, you said they've defended our freedoms, speaking of Hispanics and the Dreamers, right? They've defended our freedoms in the United States military. Many of these young people are in their 30s now with careers, families, plans, hopes, and dreams of their own. So the uncertainty about their status, of what will happen to them, is no less terrifying for them than it would be for any of us. And I love that statement, and I appreciate your empathy toward these people and our people, and many of them being Texans. And so do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yes, it's unfortunate, but that the DACA issue, I still remember going to the White House when President Obama was there, and after the election, and at the time, and we said, now would be a good time for us to work together on a bipartisan basis to come up with a solution to DACA, or at least to these young people who came here with their parents, but now are older and have children of their own, as you point out. And unfortunately, he decided to issue an executive memorandum, and that became known as DACA, the Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals. It's been caught up in litigation for years now, and the Supreme Court has said that has kicked it down the road, I guess, back to the administration. But I have long since come to the view that it's simply unfair to these young people who did nothing wrong to hold them hostage to other attempts to try to address immigration reform. We need to do this on a standalone basis. Previously, President Trump did offer a pathway to citizenship for 1.7 million DACA eligible young people, but it was part of a larger bill. And unfortunately, those other pieces of the legislation caused this bill to fail as a whole, including the DACA provision. So I've advocated to the White House and anybody else who listened that we need to do this on a standalone basis because it's the right thing to do, and it's unfair to use these young people as leverage to try to get some other things done in the immigration area. So we're continuing to work on it. I talked to the Vice President about it on the airplane going back from Dallas a week and a half ago. He was very interested. I talked to the President himself and other officials at the White House. I keep holding out hope that we will get this done and get it done soon.
Well, thank you for going to bat for us, as they say. And you have been just a great fresh breath of air for us who have the dream, right? The American dream, as they say. And to know that you're fighting on behalf of the entire Rio Grande Valley, as well as Texas and our great state of Texas. And I just want to thank you again for your superb leadership in leading the way for many years now, for many, many years, in representing us Texans. And we wish you and your family the best. We want you to stay safe. We want you to know that our heart and our prayers are with you and all who you work with, including our president and the vice president and everybody in Washington, D.C. Do you have any closing remarks you'd like to make?
Well, I will tell you, Pastor, that frequently people will tell me that they are praying for me and for our government and our leaders, like you just said. And I always tell them that I welcome that. It means a lot to me. And believe me, Washington could use some divine intervention. But these are challenging times for all of us. But we know, especially if you're a person of faith, that things will turn out for good. This is maybe a way to test our character, maybe teach us a lesson about depending on ourselves alone and the futility of that. And so I just think this is maybe something as painful as it can be, something we can learn going through this experience. So thank you for letting me join you today. God bless you and all of your congregation, and please let me know if there's anything else that we can do to be of assistance.
Well, thank you, Senator, once again, and please count on our prayers, and know that we are most definitely praying for you and keeping you in mind, and keep fighting the good fight, as the Bible says. And so we just want to thank everyone again for joining us today. With gentlemen like Senator John Cornyn in Washington, it gives us hope and it gives us inspiration to know that there are men of faith, especially for those who are watching right now who consider themselves people of faith. And our faith is going to be our foundation for what's to come in the future. And so we thank the senator and we thank all the people in Washington who are representing us as a community of faith. Thank you so much for joining us today. May God bless you, God bless Texas, and God bless the United States of America.